I woke to Lucas making coffee in the kitchen, the familiar sound of ceramic against granite. My body ached in places I hadn't felt in years, and the memory struck me like cold water. The previous evening, the hall downstairs, 6 pairs of hands. "Morning, babe." Lucas didn't turn around. Steam rose from his mug, and I watched the way his shoulders curved forward, the same tired posture he'd worn for months. I pulled my robe tighter. The fabric felt rough against skin that remembered gentler touches. "Morning." "You were out late yesterday." Not a question, not quite an accusation either. Grocery run took longer than expected. The lie came easily, which scared me more than the truth would have. He finally turned, and I searched his face for something: anger, suspicion, hurt. But Lucas looked the same as always, distant, preoccupied, already thinking about his laptop upstairs, the emails waiting, the work that pulled him away from me night after night. I found this on the floor by the door. He held up a small plastic keycard, the kind that opened the hall downstairs. My stomach dropped. "Must have fallen out of someone's pocket," I said, taking it from him. Our fingers brushed for half a second. Once, that tiny contact would have sent warmth up my arm. Now it registered as nothing. "I'll drop it at the front desk later," I added, slipping the card into my robe pocket. Lucas nodded and returned to his coffee. The quiet stretched between us, the same quiet that had been growing for months. But now it carried weight. Now it held secrets. I considered Andrew's warm smile, Sam's gentle kiss on my neck, the way they'd all looked at me like I was worth seeing, like I mattered. The key card pressed against my hip through the thin fabric. The grocery store had a different energy on Sunday afternoons. Quieter. Fewer families, more single people grabbing essentials before the week began. I pushed my cart down the cereal aisle, trying to focus on Lucas's preferred brand, when I saw him. Mark. 27, broad shoulders, the same easy grin he'd worn the previous evening when he'd whispered in my ear. He was reading a nutrition label, completely absorbed. For a moment I considered turning around, escaping down another aisle. But he looked up, and our eyes met. "Marina." He said my name like it meant something. "How are you feeling today?" Heat crept up my neck. "Fine. Just shopping." "Good." He stepped closer, close enough that I caught his scent, clean soap and something warmer underneath. "We were hoping you were okay. After yesterday." The word "we" sent a shiver through me. They'd talked about me, discussed what happened, what I'd let happen. "I'm married," I said quietly, though I wasn't sure why. "I know." Mark's tone was gentle, not judgmental. "Doesn't change anything about yesterday, though, does it?" A woman with a crying toddler pushed past us, and I used the distraction to step back. But Mark's eyes stayed on mine, patient and understanding in a way Lucas's hadn't been in months. "I should go," I whispered. "You should." He smiled, but there was something sad in it. "But Marina, if you ever need to talk, or just be seen, you know where to find us." I hurried away, leaving my half-filled cart behind. In the parking lot, I sat in my car with shaking hands, the keycard still in my pocket like a weight, like a promise, or a threat. Lucas was waiting when I got home, empty-handed from the abandoned shopping trip. "Forget something?" He gestured at my lack of groceries. They were out of what we needed. Another lie. They were getting easier. He sat at our kitchen table with his laptop open, but his attention was on me. Really on me, for the first time in weeks. I wasn't sure I liked it. "Marina, are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. I set my purse down carefully, buying time. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one." He closed the laptop. "Are you happy? With us? With this?" I considered the previous evening, about feeling desired, wanted, seen, about 6 men who looked at me like I was beautiful instead of invisible, about the way Sam's lips had pressed against my throat, the way Andrew's hands had traced my shoulders. Are you? I turned the question back on him. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. I don't know anymore. We used to talk. Really talk. Now it seems like we're just existing in the same space. He wasn't wrong. But hearing him say it out loud made something close somewhere inside my chest. Work's been stressful, he continued. I know I've been distant. But lately you seem different too. Like you're somewhere else even when you're right here. I pulled the grocery receipt from my purse, evidence of my aborted shopping trip, crumpled proof of my distraction. Maybe we both are. Maybe we need to do something about that. The keycard in my pocket seemed to burn against my leg. Lucas was trying, finally trying, and all I could think about was the hall downstairs and the men who'd made me feel alive again. Maybe we do, I agreed, hating myself for the lie. Monday evening found me standing outside the hall again. I'd told Lucas I was going for a walk, needed air. Not entirely untrue. I did need something, though I wasn't sure air was it. Andrew noticed me first. He said something to the others, and they all looked up. Chris smiled and waved me in. I shouldn't have gone. Should have turned around, gone home to Lucas, tried to repair what we'd let break. Instead, I pushed open the door. Marina. Andrew's tone was warm, welcoming. We were hoping we'd see you again. Were you? The question came out smaller than I'd intended. Of course. Robert pulled out a chair for me. Saturday evening was special. For all of us. I sat down, hyper-aware of how close they were, how the air seemed to shift when Chris moved his chair closer to mine. It was a mistake. Was it? Andrew leaned forward. You seemed pretty sure it wasn't at the time. Heat flooded my cheeks. I'm married. So you keep saying. Chris's hand found mine on the table. But marriage is just a piece of paper, isn't it? What matters is how you feel. What you need. His thumb traced across my knuckles, and I didn't pull away. Couldn't pull away. I need to go home, I whispered. But I didn't move. Do you? Robert's tone was gentle. Or do you need to stay? Just for a while? The room seemed smaller suddenly, warmer. Like Saturday evening all over again, but slower this time, more deliberate. I considered Lucas upstairs, probably working late again, not even noticing I was gone. Just for a while, I heard myself say. My phone buzzed against the table, cutting through the haze of Chris's hands on my shoulders, Andrew's murmur in my ear. The screen lit up with Lucas's name, and reality crashed back like ice water. I have to take this. I grabbed the phone, stepping away from their warmth. Hey, babe. Lucas sounded tired, but not suspicious. How's your walk going? Fine, just getting some air. Chris was watching me from across the room, and I turned away from his knowing smile. I was thinking about what we discussed yesterday, about us. Lucas carried a weight I hadn't heard in months. Maybe we should plan something. A weekend away? Remember how we used to do that? I closed my eyes. That sounds nice. Good. I'll look into some places. Maybe that bed and breakfast in the mountains you liked? The memory struck me. Our second anniversary. Hiking trails and making love by a fireplace. Talking until dawn about our dreams. When had we stopped doing that? When had we stopped seeing each other? Marina, you still there? Yeah, I'm here. But I wasn't, not really. I was split between two worlds, two versions of myself. I love you, Lucas said quietly. I know I haven't been great at showing it lately, but I do. I want us to work. Behind me, I heard Andrew say something to the others, their low laughter mixing with guilt in my stomach. The phone weighed heavy in my hand. I love you too, I whispered, and meant it. That was the worst part. I meant it. Come home soon. Yeah, soon. I hung up and turned back to find all three men watching me. The spell was broken. The moment fractured. Husband checking up? Robert's tone was neutral, but I caught the edge underneath. He wants to work on things. Our relationship. And what do you want? Andrew asked. I looked at them. These men who'd given me something I'd forgotten I needed, who'd made me feel desired and alive. Then I considered Lucas, finally trying, finally reaching for me across the distance we'd let grow. I don't know, I admitted. I walked home slowly, taking the long way around the building. The keycard sat heavy in my pocket. I'd forgotten to return it to the desk like I'd promised Lucas. Now it seemed like evidence, like proof of choices I wasn't ready to examine. Our apartment was dark except for the glow from Lucas's laptop in the bedroom. I found him there, glasses on, working late as always. But he looked up when I entered, really looked at me. Feel better? He asked, closing the computer. A little. I sat on the edge of our bed, the mattress dipping under my weight. Lucas, about that weekend away? You don't want to go? No, I do. I pulled the key card from my pocket, turning it over in my hands. Such a small thing to carry so much weight. I think we need to be honest with each other, really honest. Something shifted in his expression. Okay? Have you been happy? Really happy? Not just content or comfortable, but actually happy. He was quiet for a long time. No, he said finally. I haven't, and I don't think you have either. I nodded, throat tight. So what do? We try. We really try this time. No more hiding behind work or routine or whatever walls we've built. He reached for my hand, and I let him take it. Can we do that? Can we try? I considered Andrew's smile, Chris's gentle hands, the way they'd all made me feel seen. Then I looked at Lucas, my husband, the man I'd promised to love, who was finally asking me to meet him halfway. The keycard seemed like a choice in my palm. I could keep it, return to the hall, lose myself in the attention I'd craved. Or I could let it go. Yes, I said, and meant it. We can try. I stood and walked to our bedroom window. 3 floors down, the hall sat dark and empty. I opened the window and dropped the keycard, watching it fall into the shadows below. When I turned back, Lucas was watching me with something I hadn't seen in months. Hope. What was that? He asked. Something I needed to let go of, I said, and for the first time in days, it seemed like the truth. I woke to Lucas standing by our bedroom window, holding something small between his fingers. The morning light caught the plastic surface, and my stomach dropped. Interesting thing happened this morning, he said without turning around. Building maintenance found this in the courtyard, right below our window. The key card, the one I'd thrown away the previous evening, thinking it would disappear into the shadows. Instead, it had landed on concrete, waiting to be discovered. What is it? I kept my tone steady, though my pulse hammered against my throat. Hall access card. Lucas finally faced me, and his expression was unreadable. Funny thing is, I asked the desk about it. They said they've been missing one for a week. I sat up slowly, pulling the sheet around me. Maybe someone dropped it. Maybe. He walked to the dresser, set the card down with deliberate care. Or maybe someone threw it out our window, around the time you came back from your walk. The quiet stretched between us, heavy with unspoken accusations. Lucas knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to ask questions I couldn't answer honestly. Why would I have a hall key card? I tried for confusion, but it came out defensive instead. I don't know, Marina. Why would you? He waited, giving me space to confess or deflect. I chose the coward's path. I have no idea. Maybe it got mixed up in my things somehow. Lucas nodded slowly, like he'd expected the lie. Right. Well, I returned it to the desk. They were grateful. He moved toward the bathroom, pausing in the doorway. By the way, I found a few places for our weekend. That bed and breakfast in the mountains has an opening this Friday. That's soon. Is it? I assumed we agreed we needed to try. Really try this time. The weight of his expectation pressed against my chest. 3 days from now, we'd be alone together for 48 hours, pretending our relationship wasn't built on fresh lies. Of course, I said. Friday sounds perfect. But as Lucas disappeared into the bathroom, I stared at the dresser where the keycard had been. Such a small thing to carry so much truth. Tuesday afternoon found me at Lucas's laptop, browsing restaurant menus for our weekend getaway. He'd left a tab open with the bed and breakfast reservation, and seeing our names listed together, Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez, made my chest tighten with something between hope and dread. Find anything good? Lucas appeared behind me, hands settling on my shoulders. Once, that simple touch would have sent warmth through my entire body. Now I registered the weight of everything I hadn't told him, the distance I'd created with my choices. This place looks nice. I clicked on a wine bar with outdoor seating. Remember how we used to sit outside for hours, just talking? Before we stopped talking. His fingers traced along my collarbone, and I forced myself not to flinch. We're going to fix that, aren't we? Yes. The word came out hoarse. Lucas leaned down, pressed a kiss to the top of my head. I made dinner reservations for Friday evening. That Italian place you love. You didn't have to. I wanted to. I want to do a lot of things differently. His reflection appeared in the laptop screen beside mine, and for a moment we looked like the couple we used to be, before distance crept in, before I let loneliness drive me into other men's arms. Marina, can I ask you something? My hand stilled on the keyboard. Sure. Have you been, have you met anyone new lately? Made friends? The question struck like cold water. What do you mean? You seem different. Not bad different, just like you're carrying something. And yesterday, when you came back from your walk, you looked like you'd been crying. I hadn't been crying. I'd been standing in a hall, letting 6 men touch me while my husband worked upstairs. But I couldn't say that. Just work stress, I lied. You know how it gets. Lucas straightened, and I lost his reflection in the screen. Right. Work. He moved away, and I heard him opening cabinets in the kitchen. Making tea, probably. The same ritual he'd performed every evening for 3 years. The comfortable routine that had once seemed like home and now resembled prison bars. I'm looking forward to this weekend, I called out, hating how forced it sounded. Me too, he replied. But something in his tone had shifted, like he was trying to convince himself as much as me. I closed the laptop and stared at the blank screen, seeing only my own reflection. 3 days until we'd be alone together, trying to rebuild something I'd already broken. Wednesday evening, Lucas suggested we grab dinner at the new burger place downtown. Practice for the weekend, he said with a smile that almost reached his eyes. I agreed, grateful for any excuse to leave the apartment and the weight of our careful conversations. The restaurant was crowded, filled with the usual mix of families and couples. We'd just been seated when I saw them. Andrew and Mark at a table near the window, deep in conversation over beer and fries. My blood turned to ice. You okay? Lucas followed my gaze. You look like you've seen a ghost. Fine. Just recognize someone. But Andrew had already noticed me. He raised his hand in a casual wave, the kind of gesture that looked friendly and innocent. Mark turned to see who he was waving at, and his face broke into that same warm smile I remembered from Saturday evening. They stood up. They were walking over. Friends of yours? Lucas asked, watching them approach. Not really, just neighbors from the building. Marina, hey. Andrew carried that same easy warmth that had drawn me in before. How are you doing? Good, fine. I forced a smile, hyper-aware of Lucas beside me, studying the interaction. This is my husband, Lucas. Lucas, nice to meet you. Andrew extended his hand, and Lucas shook it with polite confusion. I'm Andrew. This is Mark. We live in your building. Well, Mark does. I'm usually visiting the shared spaces. The word shared struck like a slap. I saw Lucas register it, file it away with all his other growing suspicions. Shared spaces? Lucas asked. The hall downstairs. Great for gatherings, parties. Marina knows it well, don't you? Andrew's smile was perfectly innocent, but I caught the edge underneath, the subtle reminder of what he knew, what he could say. I've seen it, I managed. You should check it out sometime, Mark added, addressing Lucas directly. Very welcoming space. Marina seemed to really enjoy herself when she stopped by. The words hung in the air like smoke. Lucas looked between the three of us, and I watched something shift in his expression. Not quite suspicion, but awareness. Like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. I'll keep that in mind, Lucas said carefully. Well, we should let you get back to your dinner. Andrew's hand brushed my shoulder as he passed. So brief it could have been accidental. Good seeing you, Marina. Both of you. They returned to their table, but I sensed their presence like heat at my back. Lucas was quiet for a long moment, studying the menu with unusual intensity. Nice guys, he said finally. I guess. Funny that you never mention meeting neighbors, especially ones who know you well enough to wave across restaurants. My throat seemed dry. It wasn't worth mentioning. Wasn't it? The question sat between us like an accusation. I reached for my water glass, buying time, but my hand shook slightly. Lucas noticed everything. Thursday morning, I woke to find Lucas already dressed, sitting in the chair by our bedroom window. He was holding something in his hands, turning it over slowly. What's that? I asked, though part of me already knew. Another keycard. His tone was flat, emotionless. Found it in the pocket of your jacket, the one you wore Monday evening. My stomach dropped. I'd forgotten about the spare, the one Andrew had pressed into my palm as I left the hall that second time, the one I'd shoved deep into my jacket pocket and forgotten about until now. I don't. Lucas held up his hand. Please don't lie to me again, not about this. He stood, walked to the dresser, and set the card down next to where the first one had been. The plastic caught the morning light, small and damning. 2 keycards, Marina. 2. One you threw out our window, one hidden in your jacket, both from the hall where your new friends like to gather. I pulled the sheet up to my chin, suddenly cold. Lucas. How long? His back was still turned to me, shoulders rigid. How long have you been going down there? The question hung in the air. I could lie again, pile another deception on top of all the others. Or I could tell him the truth and watch our relationship shatter in real time. Twice, I whispered. Twice. He repeated the word like it tasted bitter. Saturday evening and Monday evening. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. What happened, Marina? What happened that you needed to sneak around behind my back? Nothing happened. Nothing? He turned around, and his face was a mask of controlled fury. You disappear for hours, come home different, hide keycards in your jacket, and nothing happened? We just talked. That's all. Just talked. Lucas laughed, but there was no humor in it. With 6 men, in a private room, until what, midnight, 1 a.m.? How did you... I asked around. Building security has cameras in the lobby. Funny thing about timestamps. They don't lie. My world tilted. He knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to destroy us. Lucas, please, let me explain. Explain what? How my wife has been meeting strange men in secret? How she's been lying to my face for days? His tone cracked slightly. How she throws evidence out our window and thinks I'm too stupid to notice. It's not what you think. Then what is it, Marina? Because what I think is that my wife is having an affair. Multiple affairs. With men who live in our building and wave at her in restaurants like they own her. The word affair struck like a physical blow. Because that's what it was, wasn't it? Regardless of the loneliness that drove me there, regardless of how empty our relationship had become, I had cheated. With 6 men. In 1 evening. I'm sorry, I whispered. Sorry for what? For doing it, or for getting caught? I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came. because honestly, I wasn't sure. Say something. Lucas broke the quiet that had stretched between us for 10 minutes. Say anything. I sat on the edge of our bed, still wrapped in the sheet, watching my husband pace our bedroom like a caged animal. The 2 key cards sat on the dresser between us, small plastic rectangles that held the weight of our entire relationship. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me the truth. All of it. He stopped pacing, faced me directly. Were you sleeping with them? The question hung in the air like a blade. I could see the hope in his eyes, the desperate wish that maybe, somehow, it wasn't as bad as he assumed. Yes. The word came out as a whisper, but it might as well have been a scream. Lucas's face crumpled. He sank into the chair by the window, head in his hands. All of them? Lucas, all of them, Marina? It wasn't. It wasn't like that. It wasn't planned. I was lonely, and they were kind, and you've been so distant. So this is my fault? His head snapped up, eyes blazing. I work too much, so you sleep with 6 strangers? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Because I'm trying to understand how the woman I married, the woman I love, ends up in a room with 6 men doing God knows what. I stood up, clutching the sheet around me. You want to know what happened? Fine. I was walking home Saturday evening, feeling invisible and forgotten, and they invited me in. They saw me, Lucas. They looked at me like I mattered. You matter to me. When do I matter to you? When you're working 16-hour days? When you fall asleep on the couch every evening? When you haven't touched me, really touched me, in months? So you found 6 men who would? The cruelty in his tone made me flinch. But he wasn't wrong. I made a mistake, I said quietly. A terrible mistake. But I can't take it back. No, you can't. Lucas stood, walked to the dresser, picked up both key cards. And I can't unknow it. He headed for the bedroom door. Where are you going? I need air. I need to think. I need to figure out if we have anything left worth saving. Lucas, wait. The weekend, the mountains, we can still... Can we? He turned back, and the look in his eyes was devastating. Can we really go to a romantic bed and breakfast and pretend this didn't happen? Can you look me in the eye over dinner and not think about them? I opened my mouth to say yes, to promise we could work through this, but the words wouldn't come, because he was right. Saturday evening had changed everything, and no amount of weekend getaways could undo what I'd done. I'll be at my brother's, he said quietly. Don't wait up. The door closed behind him with a soft click, and I was alone with the quiet and the weight of what I'd destroyed. Friday morning came without Lucas. His side of the bed remained untouched, the coffee maker cold. Our weekend reservation in the mountains sat in my email inbox like a ghost of what we might have been. I called in sick to work and spent the day cleaning our apartment with manic energy,